The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, the three-day holiday weekend bought a little bit of buying in corn and soybeans in particular, and we did find some green on the screen in the cattle trade. Curious what has been going on in that cattle market. We're going to take a look at everything. Joining us for a conversation as we examine Friday's action ahead of the three-day holiday weekend. Brady Huck with Advanced Trading and ATI Pro Media is with us. Brady, it's good to have you back on Market Talk. Happy New Year, my friend. How are you?
Happy New Year, Jesse. It's good to be back here. Thanks for having me today. I'm doing great. It's been a wild ride here to kick off the first of the year, though. It just seems like you get crammed in the holidays and try to get it through everything, and the markets haven't given us any breath of fresh air here. It's just been wild here first couple weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of been a roller coaster, and there's been a lot of positive things, some negative things, I think, for folks to take a look at, and, a good way to end the week on the grains for sure. And we can dive in there a little bit. I do want to start on the cattle side, though, with you. This cattle market, it's something I've talked about with folks here as of late. It's just been very interesting. One is, on one hand, you wonder, is the top in? Are we going to run out of steam? And then on the other side, you go, well, how many times have we called that in the last year and a half, and we've continued another leg higher? Your perspective here, cattle trade right now. I know there's a red hot cash market. Futures have been strong. What's your take in cattle right now, Brady?
Good question. Yeah, cattle market. It's good to be a cowboy right now. Everybody loves a cowboy, and it's great to be cowboys right now. But definitely some euphoria in cattle market. Guys taking their calf crop, 4, 5, 6 weights are still running really hot at the sale barns, and those auction barns have opened up, and that cash has not looked back on those lighter weight cattle. And then the packer, the packers paying up for some cattle. The feed yards got some leverage, and we're getting to record feeders, record fat levels. It's great to be in the cattle business, but everybody's going to be watching the consumer going forward, wondering, when they start to push back at higher prices, how expensive can things get before they start to push back. So that's going to be, something to pay attention to and watch going forward. And the health and the strength of the economy, just a number of factors going forward. But that consumer, when do they push back? Packers aren't making money. Feed yards, the cattle that are coming out right now, Jesse, at the feed yard, they're those cattle, those feeders that got bought in that September, October timeframe after we sold off in July. Those cattle are performing really well and should be making guys, pretty good money if they're coming out right now. But going back to buy those 8, 9 weights at the auction barns, they're pretty expensive, and to replace those cattle is, a lot of question marks ahead for those cattle that are getting placed right now on how well they'll perform and if they pencil out or not going forward. But yeah, euphoria. Nobody can predict the top. Got a lot of tools out there to go manage downside risk. Markets can get really parabolic when there's a supply squeeze and strong demand. So as long as you stay in that market, it can really stay bullish until it's not, Jesse.
You alluded to it there, and I kind of asked you a question before we went on live. I've been fielding some thoughts from folks wondering if we're getting to price levels where it is actually tougher to make a profit in cattle right now. And I know you shared a couple thoughts there, and I know specifically for the cow-calf guy, you kind of mentioned to me, times are good for the cow-calf guy. I mean, talk about that aspect, though. Is it tough for some folks to make a profit here at these levels?
If you're buying those 8 weights and putting them on feed, you've got some headwinds in front of you. You need stronger cash down the road. Corn's rallying too here, Jesse. So that cost of gain could be creeping up a little bit on a guy as well. So you're buying expensive feeders, putting them on feed. That cost of gain might be trickling a little bit higher. You need the board to keep going higher to be able to make those cattle work. But there's only so many of them out there, and you might be in a good spot down the road if demand stays together and we get that higher cash down the road. But a lot of question marks, a lot of uncertainty. Sometimes when everybody wants to buy cattle and place them on feed, that's the time you run the other direction, Jesse. And when nobody wants them, nobody wants to touch them, like maybe August, September timeframe, that's when there's some opportunity down the road for guys.
I'm curious too, and I know we'll be looking at the commitment to traders report, but funds, their position in cattle right now, and we know there in itself, if they decide for some reason to flip the position that they're in, that could be problematic for these futures markets, right?
Yeah, it can. The funds run to the exits. They run faster than you can react and get a hedge in place. And limits are really, really big on cattle. Feeder limits, I think the daily limit's like $9, and the expanded limit on feeders is $12. So in 2 days, you could be down $21 on the feeder cattle side of things. That's just significant. Got a couple tailwinds though in the cattle market. Box beef, firmer, helping those packers. Got a cattle on feed report next Friday. That could be some more supportive data. That's going to incorporate the Mexican feeder cattle import ban from December into that. Maybe see some tighter on feed numbers on that report. Then we got the big January inventory report. That's 2 Fridays from now. And that could be some supportive data too, Jesse. I'm real interested to see, are we keeping heifers back, and what's the size of the beef cow herd here at the end of the month? Cow slaughter was down 18, 19, 20% in 24. So, maybe we didn't, that herd didn't shrink as much as anticipated, but how many heifers were kept back this year? That's one of the biggest questions going forward.
Very true. Very true. Well, I'm going to throw this at you here, and I think this can help us bridge over to the grain trade too.
Okay.
Is that obviously new administration taking hold on Monday? There's been all the tariff threats and more. What could we see, potentially fairly quickly upon inauguration of President-elect Trump? And so, thinking about some of those political unknowns that are out there, do you anticipate those having a big impact here in livestock and in the grain trade, Brady?
I think that applies to both. Going to be a lot of noise, a lot of headline risk out there for grains and livestock both. It's going to be a highly unpredictable market. Markets are always unpredictable, but when you involve, posturing type headlines, agreements, tariffs, there's just going to be so much noise and influence on these markets. Could be a recipe for volatility out there for your grains and livestock. So definitely, yeah, unpredictable, Jesse.
And that's why you got to manage your risk. And I'd have to think too that after Friday's session, a nice rebound in soy after Thursday's sell off. Corn got through some key levels, I feel like, as well on Friday. So, I mean, you look at the grains, your thoughts there heading into a holiday weekend and managing risk, Brady.
Yep, strong tailwinds here. Great close on the grain side of things, specifically corn. Weather in South America definitely on the radar here. Watching weather. Safrinha corn planting, soybean harvest in northern Brazil. That's definitely on the eyes of traders. And then some of those Argentina headlines there. Going to be interesting to see where the funds are at with corn and beans, and meal as well, meal and oil. It's just the whole complex within ag. But yeah, a lot of pieces to the puzzle here. Grain market. So Jesse, one thing I'd throw out there is March corn closing around 485 right now. That's where we're trading while the market's open. A year ago, Jesse, March 25 corn futures were trading 488 on the board. So we finally clawed back to where we were a year ago on this futures contract.
And that's a great point. Getting to some price levels, and I know that basis has weakened out a bit here in recent days. There's been a lot of farmers selling, but Brady, I have to think about this, that if you can get, futures to a certain point here where you're comfortable, and maybe that, basis level is close to where you want to make a sale. Again, there's so many tools in the toolbox, but there's ways to manage this and necessarily, I guess, holding out for quote unquote $5 corn when it's at 485. I mean, talk about that a little bit, because that just seems like, you're playing with fire there, so to speak.
Yeah, as basis markets can be dynamic, and it's we can hindsight the right decision to death here, but yeah, you got to manage both pieces of the puzzle, and futures are climbing, but basis softens out on you. What did you really gain? I think going forward, guys got to manage the cost of opportunity, the cost of money, cash flow. Those are things. There's ways to stay in the game on the future side of things that really made a lot of sense last fall to manage that cash flow, manage your interest costs, your storage costs, but keep the upside open with the futures piece. And basis looked, pretty good last harvest time frame there before it broke here recently. But yeah, going forward, you got to manage both pieces of the puzzle, and you can outguess it. And it's always easy to hindsight it here today. I can't predict what's going to happen going forward on that front, Jesse.
Yeah, well, and I think though too, even new crop, not I mean, if you're trying to catch up on old crop sales at this point, but new crop, D's corn, that 450 futures level, no beans, 1030 new crop. I mean, some good actionable levels there as well, Brady.
Yeah, pivotal points here too. 460 seems to be some resistance on D's 25, and we broke through 480 here today on the front month. But it's definitely an old crop type of rally, and that's supported. It's supported new crop, it's supporting beans, supporting wheat, but that old crop corn definitely rallying and leading the charge here, it feels like. And will we be able to cross through those levels and continue on? That's the $1 million question. I think a guy's got to be very careful of their bias this time of year. Don't get married to your bullish bias, your bearish bias, and market broadly enough to make an impact across your operation. We got dollars to manage, and you want to manage the dollars. You don't want to manage the dimes. So have a plan for every bushel and stay in the game. Ride the bull. It's fun to ride the bull on this old crop as long as we can. See where it goes, but we don't want to look back in hindsight and wish we would have done something more, been more aggressive.
Brady, any final thoughts for us as we close it out here today? Anything you want to mention or reiterate to folks?
Nope. Always a privilege to be on your show with you, Jesse. Thanks for having me. Going to be an interesting couple weeks going forward. The markets are moving. Volatility is still relatively low and may be a little too cheap right now for the potential uncertainty that could lie ahead of these markets. So buckle up, guys.
Well, I know you guys do live at 9 a.m. every day on the ATI Pro Media YouTube channel. Folks can tune in there for more great information and content. Brady Huck with Advanced Trading and ATI Pro Media. Thanks for being with us on Market Talk today, Brady. We'll talk to you again real soon.
See you, Jesse.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.